Hi everyone, welcome to Code Management. So today we will learn about the advanced dependency injection in Spring Boot, where we will learn many topics like the lazy annotations, object provider, the circular dependencies, the primary versus qualifier annotations, right? So in the last video, we learned about the dependency injection basics like the constructor, setter, and field injections, right? But in real world applications, in the enterprise applications, things are not always that much simple and easy. Okay. So sometimes you don't want a bean to be created immediately. You have multiple implementations, or even worse, there can be circular dependencies. So in this video, we will explore these advanced dependency injection concepts in Spring Boot. Let's get started. So why the advanced dependency injections? So before jumping into annotations, let's understand why we even need advanced dependency injections. So in basic dependency injections, beans are created at startup and dependencies are fixed. But in real world systems, in enterprise applications, some beans are heavy, some dependencies are optional, and some are needed only at runtime. Whenever we need the bean, at that point of time we need to initialize, not at very starting time. So that's where advanced dependency injection comes in. So first, what I have written, this lazy initialization. So first, let's talk about this lazy annotation. By default, Spring creates all the singleton bins at application startup, and singleton bins are eager. Okay, so sometimes we don't want those singleton startup time bins. Okay, so we want the bin to be created only when it is actually used. So when we use the lazy annotation on a bin or dependency, then Spring delays its creation. So instead of creating it at the startup time, it creates it only when it is first needed. So suppose here on the payment service, we have used this lazy annotations in the component. Otherwise, when it's being injected, so they are that auto add annotations, with that also we can use these lazy annotations, so both can be applicable, anyone you can do. So when we will do this lazy annotations, then at the startup time this payment service bin will not be created. So use cases like when heavy objects will be there, then we can use that. Then sometimes for the performance in the real life applications, you will see the startup time is high. So in that point of time, to reduce the startup time for better performance, we can add some lazy annotations on some bins. That's why startup time will be reduced and performance will be better. It also helps to avoid circular dependency. So lazy means like it create the bin only when it's required. Okay. Next concept is object provider. Okay. So that is basically on-demand injection or dynamic injection. So it provides the bin only when it's needed on demand. So now this is a very powerful concept. So like instead of injecting the object directly, Spring gives us a provider. So using the object provider, we can fetch the bin whenever we want using the get object. Suppose here in the process method, we need suppose the payment service bin. So what we have done, we have like through the object provider, we have taken the bin of this payment service. Okay. And in the process method, suppose this payment service bin will be required, then through the get object method, we are getting that bin. So we are fetching the bin using this get object. So this means the bin is created only when we explicitly ask for it. Like we are asking that give the bin. Now I will use that one. Now it's required for me. So at that point of time, only this bin will be fetched. So why we will use it? It it is used for dynamic bin retrieval. So that's why avoids early bin creation. It's help in prototype scope, solves circular dependencies as well. So it avoid the early initialization, works well with this prototype scope, and dynamic bin retrieval is possible. Next is primary and qualifier annotations. So like whenever multiple bins are there, right? So like when multiple implementation of the same interface will be there, then how we can tackle that? So when multiple implementation, then confusion like it may arise. So to solve the confusion, the primary annotations and qualifier annotations come into picture. So see, like here through the primary annotations. So like for example, any credit card payment or UPI payment, suppose both implement the payment service. Here see, this credit card payment also implements this payment service. This payment service, suppose it is an interface. So like multiple classes or multiple services implementing one same interface payment service. Here also UPI payment is also implementing payment service. Then how you can manage both implementing this payment service? Now Spring gets confused like which one to inject. So to solve this, we can use the primary annotations and qualifier annotations. So first of all, primary annotations, this primary annotations we will use to mark default bin. So here we are marking this. Suppose credit card on the credit card payment class, we are marking this as primary, right? So primary sets the default. So we are telling to Spring that don't get confused. We will inject this credit card payment. For now, don't use the UPI payment, right? And through qualifier also we can say, like in the qualifier, we can provide the class name itself. So if we will provide the name here, UPI payment, and then we will inject that one, then also Spring will know that I will not be confused. I will use the UPI payment service. Okay? Like I will use the UPI payment to inject, right? In that way, the problem can be solved, right? Now come into the circular dependency. So it is a very most important interview topic, like circular. What is the circular dependency? When it arrives? How we can solve? Okay. So this happens when two bins depend on each other. Suppose A bin depends on B and B bin also depends on A. So simple way we can use that like A bin depends on B and B bin depends on A. So through our common sense, we can solve by using another bin. So we will introduce another bin C. So now what we will do? A will depend on C, okay, and B also will depend on C, like that. In that way, we can remove the circular dependency. That's one approach. So like this happens when two bins depend on each other. So now when we are introducing this another bin, then it will depend on another bin. Suppose A is also depending on the third bin C, B is also depending on the third bin C, then circular dependency will not occur. And other way, other way, we can use the lazy annotations. So when we use the lazy annotation, suppose on the bin B, okay, suppose we are using this lazy. So lazy breaks the circular dependency. How? Like at the startup time, the bin will not be created. Only a bin will be created. Okay. So there will be some delay to depend. Suppose at the startup time, A bin created and A depends on B. That will be okay. And at that point of time, B will not take A. Like B will be not dependent on A at that startup time. So at that point of time also, the problem will be solved when you will use these lazy annotations. Okay. So it delays the injection and breaks the circular dependency. So lazy helps resolve the circular dependency in that way, right? Now, one point is causes error in constructor injection. Okay, why? So like this fails in constructor injection because both meet each other at creation time, right? During the constructor injection. But if you will use this lazy, then both will be not dependent at the like both will not need each other during the creation time. It will delay. Okay. Now go to the optional dependency. So sometimes a dependency may or may not exist. So in such cases, we can mark it an optional. So like auto add required equals to false, this private payment service dependency may or may not exist. Okay. So suppose this dependency will not require. So that's why we can make it optional through required equals to false. So optional dependency means it's okay if bin is absent. Now depends on annotations. So force bin creation order. So like sometimes we want to control the order in which bins are created. So for that we use the depends on. So like it ensures one bin is initialized before another. So like suppose A will depend on B. So first of all B need to create and after that A can be created. Right? As A depends on B. So that's why we can use this depends on. So suppose here we are using this database bin. So this service bin is depends on the database bin. So database bin will be created first and after that the service bin will be created. In that way the order will be maintained. Okay. So in that way we can control the order in which bins are created. Right. So at last I'm just making the summary here. So like lazy, it delays the initialization. Object provider means on-demand injection or the dynamic injection. Primary or qualifier through which we can resolve the multiple bins problem like or circular dependency problem. Like sorry, through the lazy annotations we can solve the circular dependency problem. And for the multiple bin use like there was some confusions, right? Suppose UPI payment service and card payment service both will depend on the payment service. So that in that point it will be some confusions of spring like which bin will be injected. So through the primary or qualifier we can set the default, or through the qualifier we can specify the name like which bin should be created or which bin should be initialized there, right? So then circular dependency it's all solved by the lazy annotations and depends on annotations. Through the depends on annotations we can control the order. Okay. So if you understand this, you are already ahead of most developers. Like this advanced Dependency injections mainly required during your real-time project works. Okay, so if you found this video helpful, then do like the video, share it, and subscribe for more Spring Boot content. And in the next video, we will dive into qualifier versus primary in depth with real examples. So see you in the next one. Okay. So till then, stay tuned. Thanks everyone.